I'm here. Fazbear Frights. I'm here. Yes, it's happening. It's finally time to read another Fazbear Frights book. It has been a few months. I was so unmotivated to get back into this, but we're back, okay? I managed to read the second story in Prankster, which is Kids at Play. So, Kids at Play, I thought it was all right. The ending is the best part about this. You know, proper goosebumps, horror vibes. There's a bit of filler in it. But yeah, most of it was pretty good. I liked it. I couldn't really find any cool lore or connections with this story with anything like we have in the past. It's pretty much basically a goosebump story. And I'll give you a summary now. If you guys have read the story, Kids at Play, let me know what you thought about it as well, please, in the comments. Because, you know, it was all right. It's one of them stories where you're just like, And by the way, if my voice cracks, if I start dying, I've been sick for like 2 weeks now. But yeah, I wanted to get a video out. I did read it this week. So let's get straight into it. Okay, so in this story, Kids at Play, the protagonist is called Joel. Joel is about 18 years old and he works at his dad's business, which is a garden centre. And he's been working there for about 4 years and he absolutely hates it. He's getting to that stage where he wants to leave his city and he wants to go and do his own thing. He's got his own dreams and he feels like, you know, where he lives is holding him back. His parents are holding him back, you know, that kind of attitude. He wanted to go to LA to start a music career. So he wanted to go to Los Angeles to start a music career of his own. And obviously his parents are not happy about this. They don't trust him. They don't believe that he's going to make it, etc. Obviously, that's going to affect Joel a lot of hate and resentment towards his parents and life in general. So he just has a really bad attitude with his parents, a bad attitude in general, really angry. He has a really bad attitude where, for work, he's always late. Every time he goes to work, he's always late. And his dad is sick of it, so he gets fired, okay? And this is where the story begins. And Joel's biggest issue is that he gets angry a lot. And when he gets angry, he has a road rage. So he leaves work, gets in his truck, and drives 60 miles an hour in a 30 miles per hour zone. You know, this isn't a city road. This is a neighborhood with houses and kids outside playing. He's going 60 miles per hour, speeding down streets in his neighborhood, which is not good. Not good at all. Keeps thinking about things while he's driving and he gets angrier and angrier and he goes even faster. And while he's driving, he has to take a turn to get to his house. He goes way too fast because he's still speeding. Because he takes the turn too fast, he skids and he thinks he's hit a mailbox. He doesn't hit a mailbox. He hits something completely different that is gonna completely change his life. So he gets out of the car and checks what he actually hit. Joel walked around his truck and looked down at the shoulder. He lifted his brows. He had not hit a mailbox. A 3-foot tall, neon yellow-green plastic figure, vaguely shaped like a kid, lay on its side in the dirt behind Joel's truck. The kid held a triangular orange flag that had the words Kids at Play printed in black. The colour of the sign matched the orange hat that was moulded across the top of the kid's plastic head. Across what could have been called the figure's hips, the word slow shined under a red reflector. Joel laughed. Heck of a lot of good the little dude had done just now. Joel had not even seen it, much less felt compelled to heed its stupid warning. He noticed the plastic figure's legs were cracked, probably as a result of their impact with Joel's truck. No big deal, the figure would still work. Joel started to turn away from the figure, but for some reason, its large, round black eyes and gaping empty mouth caught his attention. He paused, goosebumps formed on his bare arms as he stared into the sightless, lifeless little face. He shook his head and rubbed his eyes. Whatever, Joel said aloud. He looked around. He was alone, so he once again started to return to his truck. And again, he stopped. This time, his attention was caught by the disgusting sludge puddle by the plastic figure's feet. What was that? It wasn't mud. It wasn't dog poo. It was... Joel bent over to see the sludge more clearly, and he immediately recoiled. The brownish lumpy mass looked like a dog had melted into a semi-liquid ooze. Joel gets really creeped out by that. He gets in his truck and drives away. And with all the Fazbear Frights stories, it tickled the hairs at the back of his neck. So we've heard that a lot in the Fazbear Frights stories. When something bad happens, the hair raises at the back of their necks to indicate that something bad's going to happen. I don't think we really have them in the UK. They might be more popular in America, but they're basically these little plastic figures that are on, that are on streets to stop people from speeding because kids are at play. So it's in neighborhoods where kids are often outside playing ball or playing with their friends. They put the signs out so drivers know that this is a busy road and not to speed, because if they do speed, they might cause an accident and hit one of the children who are playing outside. Now, Joel, luckily, didn't hit a kid, but he swerves, hits a mailbox, but he does hit one of the figurines, okay? And interestingly, this will be important later on. The figurine had this mushy mud underneath it, okay? Remember that, because that's something we're going to talk about later on. Joel got really bad grades at school. The reason the truck that Joel drives is pretty bad, but his dad got it in, and his dad said if he gets good grades, he gets a good truck. But he got bad grades, so he got a bad truck. He was supposed to go to college, but didn't go. Okay, he joined a band instead to pursue a music career, and his parents are obviously not happy about that. So Joel's got a really bad attitude now. He feels trapped with all of the rules that his parents give him, and that makes him angry. He's got a lot of anger inside of him, which in the Fazbear Fright stories is a big emotion. That Eleanor loves agony and anger. Joel needs to get his job back because he needs the money, because he wants to get away and get his own place and start his music career. But he still needs the money, so he tries to convince his dad that he was wrong. He'll stop being late for work, and his dad gets convinced to give his job back. In the morning, Joel is eating some Fazbear Faz Crunch cereal. And while he's eating the cereal, something comes out of it. He picked up the bright red box and putting his thumb over Freddy Fazbear's face, tried to shake a third bowl's worth from the near empty box. A couple more cereal bits fell out, along with something small and yellow, wrapped in cellophane. Right, the toy prize inside every box. Fishing the prize out of the milk with his spoon and spraying the counter with milk in the process, Joel looked at the toy. Was that? He wiped the cellophane on the napkin lying next to his cereal bowl and tore open the wrapping to see the toy more clearly. It couldn't be what he thought it was. The plastic toy clattered onto the counter, and Joel flinched. It was what he thought it was. The toy was a miniature version of the same freaky yellow plastic kid-shaped figure he had hit with his truck yesterday. Just like that figure, the toy held an orange triangular flag that read "Kids at Play." Just like that figure, the toy had "slow" printed across its hips under a red reflector. It had the same orange hat, the black eyes, the gaping mouth. The thing was identical in all respects except the size to the plastic figure Joel had hit. Identical, even to the way it made him feel when he looked at it. The thing seriously weirded him out. What were the odds? Why would anyone even make a toy that looked like that stupid kid figurine? Which is exactly true, guys. What a coincidence that is, that, Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, have a cereal, but they even made a little toy figurine of the Kids at Play, little toy. I feel like that can't be a coincidence. That's obviously somebody playing tricks with him, playing with his mind. He hit the figurine yesterday going too fast, and now in his cereal, he's got a little version of that. He flicks it off the table, it falls on the floor, tries to forget about it, and he goes to school. Moving on, nothing really happens or haunts him for the rest of the week, so we're all good. We get introduced to his best friend, Zach, and they go to Zach's old barn for music practice. So all of his friends, the band members, are all there practicing because they've got their own band. While they're there, Joel's complaining about his parents and his life. His friends decide to give him a bit of a reality check. His friends tell Joel that he's very lucky to be working with his dad. You know, he's got an easy job. He's working with his dad. He's working with family. He gets great pay. He gets paid a lot more than a normal job. He's got great parents. He's got a great life. His parents love him. Joel, you need to appreciate what you have. You know, your anger blinds you. You know, you're so angry all the time. You're not in the present, you know, you're not appreciating the present time. And how do you think angry Joel reacts to this reality check? He gets angry. So he storms out of the barn, gets in his truck, and what do you think he does when he's getting angry? He starts speeding for the second time now. After the first warning of hitting the kids at play figurine at first, you know, that should have been a reality check there. He skidded. He could have crashed. And luckily he didn't. But, you know, that should have been a realization. You know, you need to calm down a little bit. But no, he speeds even faster. He goes over 80 miles per hour in a neighborhood, which is so bad. And this is at midnight, by the way. This is at the middle of the night as well. You know, it's not during daytime. It's not an excuse. But when it's dark as well and you're going that fast in a neighborhood, that is so bad. It's, you know, he's going super fast. He's got his windows down. He's screaming out the window, going absolutely crazy, letting all of his anger out. His emotions are very messy right now. And again, when he's going home, he slides around a corner again. He slides around a corner out of control again. And even after that, he carries on speeding. And the Fazbear Fright universe has had enough of Joel. And I'm going to read to you what happens next. At one point, he felt the tyres come off the road, and for a split second, he thought the truck was going to flip. His heart stopped beating for an instant, but then the truck settled, even though it was still in a skid. Joel let the truck have its way, and he even began enjoying the adrenaline rush of the slide. He enjoyed it, that is, until he saw the child caught in his headlights. What in the hell was a kid doing out after midnight? As soon as he saw the kid, Joel jammed his foot on the brakes. He didn't even downshift, he just hit the brakes. The truck bucked, but it didn't slow fast enough. The front bumper slammed into the child with a thud that seemed to reverberate through the truck and right into Joel's body. As soon as he heard the impact, Joel wanted to squeeze his eyes shut and pretend he was someplace else, but he couldn't. It was like his gaze was tied by a string to the trajectory of the child's body as it flew up and out, away from the truck, and then disappeared off the road. He assumed they landed in the deep ditch just off the pavement. So yeah, unfortunately, guys, Joel hits a kid in the middle of midnight, which is really weird. But it's explained later on. But yeah, he hits a kid. The kid gets hit by the truck and then falls into a ditch at the side of the road. What do you think Joel should do at this point? He's supposed to. He should go and check if the kid's okay and check if it was a kid. It could have been an animal or something. Even then, go and check and see what's happened and, you know, if they're okay. He doesn't. He doesn't go and check if the child he hit is okay. He panics and he gets too scared and he's too guilty to go and look what he's done. And in the state of panic, there's some headlights behind him driving down the street. He starts to panic. He starts the truck and gets the hell out of there. And he leaves whatever he hit in the ditch. I wonder what's going to happen to Joel in this Fazbear Fright story. Even then, when he's hit the kid, he speeds all the way back home. He still speeds all the way back home straight after. Now, Joel does feel bad, okay? He's really stupid for doing something like this, but he does feel bad. He can't go to... When he gets home, he can't fall asleep. That's all he's thinking about. In his brain, he keeps thinking about him hitting the kid. And, he's panicking and he doesn't know what to do. And his brain is telling him to go back. Joel, Go back and check on the kid. You've still got time. You need to go and check. Joel says he couldn't because it would have got him into too much trouble. He'd go to jail. His music career would be over. So he doesn't go. The next morning, he's still feeling guilty, obviously. He couldn't sleep. He didn't sleep a lot. Should he tell his dad? Should he tell somebody about what's happened? He still doesn't. And throughout the story, he doesn't, by the way. He just tries to go to work as normal, and tries to forget about what's happened. His dad decides to drive them to work today, and they stop off at a cafe to get some donuts. On the way to the cafe, they're stuck in traffic. Joel's looking out of the car, and he notices something looking at him at the side of the road. And of course, it's another Kids at Play figurine at the side of the road. And he's never seen that before, ever. He's lived here for a long time, and he's only starting to realise how many of these plastic figurines are on the roads. Have they always been there? Is he only starting now to take notice of them ever since he hit one of them a few days ago? Later on again, when they're driving to the cafe, there is another one at the side of the road, but this one is staring directly at him, directly at Joel. Which is absolutely terrifying to think about. This Kids at Play figure, he knows where this location is, and he's never, ever, ever, ever seen one of those plastic figurines at that position on that road. But now there is one. These Kids at Play figurines around the neighborhood do not like Joel at all for what he's done. They eventually get to the diner. It's called Sally's Diner, to get the donuts. And now this is where it starts to get much, much worse. So at the diner, Sally's there. And Sally seems to be a little bit upset when Joel goes in to collect the donuts and asks what's wrong. Sally's grandson has gone missing. The last time Sally's grandson was seen was at midnight. And that was the time when Joel hit the kid. Joel starts to realise now it's looking really likely that he did hit a kid. And not just anybody's kid, it's Sally's grandson directly talking to her. He knows all about this. He probably knows where Sally's grandson is. Doesn't say anything. Does not say a thing to her. Joel's dad goes in and finds out about this, and the police are involved in everything now, and they are organising in the neighbourhood a police search to look for Caleb. Now, Caleb is the name of the kid, and Joel's dad has said that they're going to help with the search. This is pretty awkward at this point because even Joel's dad is trying to help look for Caleb, and Joel knows where he's going to be, but he doesn't say anything. They actually go to a hardware store to gather some materials to help out for the search. What do you think is at the hardware store to haunt Joel? It's another Kids at Play figurine. Joel blinked and turned forward, a shelf full of packaged wooden stakes as his dad went around the end of an aisle. Joel lifted a bundle and started to follow his dad again. A clicking sound stopped him. It was soft ticking, like plastic tapping on wood, and it was coming from behind him. Joel whirled. Nothing was there. He looked left and right, and then down the aisle all the way to the picture window at the front of the store. Something small and yellow caught his eye through the window. He sucked in his breath. Was that He took a couple of steps towards the window, squinting. It was. A Kids at Play plastic figure was standing outside the hardware store, right by the window. It was positioned so it looked like one of its black eyes was looking through the window, watching Joel. You can see now that this is not a coincidence. It's like they're following him and haunting him for what he's done. Now, it's not just seeing them, it's hearing them as well. So Joel starts to hear plastic clicking when one of them are near, which is really creepy. You can imagine that. So yeah, the Kids at Play figurines are like the guilt that he's starting to get worse and worse. So every time he sees a Kids at Play figurine, he thinks about the accident of him hitting a kid. During the search, Caleb is still not found during the whole day of searching for him. And annoyingly, Joel, during the search, goes to a different area completely the opposite side of the town because he doesn't want to go near where he hit Caleb because he can't risk finding him. And he explains why, because if Caleb's still alive, Caleb is going to know about Joel's truck and what hit him, and Joel's going to get in trouble. It's still really stupid. Joel, like, at this point, you know, when you're like, okay, maybe you deserve what's coming to you. This is probably that point because he's had so many chances to go back and, you know, just own up to it, you know. It's a kid's life, you know. You could still save him. Because if he's been hit by the truck and he's injured, he's broke a leg or something, and nobody's going to find him, he's just going to suffer there. But Joel knows where he is, and he's just letting him suffer there in the ditch. It's so bad. So Joel goes back home and goes to bed, and at his bedside is the Kids at Play cereal figurine that he flicked off onto the floor in the kitchen, staring at him at his bedside. Now, he does say, like, oh, it could be my mom. My mom's probably just put it there. She saw it in the kitchen and she's come upstairs and put it on the bedside. But his mom doesn't do stuff like that. Usually she puts Joel's stuff like it's somewhere else, not in his bedroom. So again, it's pretty weird that this little figurine has managed to get its way up to Joel's bedroom when it shouldn't be there. And again, every time he sees one of these Kids at Play figurines, he thinks about the accident. So as soon as he sees it, he gets like, you know, in the back of his mind, he sees the accident. He even says that the figurine is haunting his mind, telling him to do the right thing. You know, it's like the figurines are warning him, like, do it, you know, own up to it, go. You know where the kid is, go and do it. And he still doesn't do it. He still doesn't do it, guys. This is bad. So Joel goes, I'm not sacrificing it. I'm not sacrificing my life for a stupid kid. And he's still not blaming himself for what's happened. He's blaming the kid. The kid shouldn't have been there at midnight. The kid shouldn't have been on the road. Joel, you shouldn't have been going 80 miles per hour in a freaking neighborhood, mate. He grabs the cereal prize, smashes it on the floor, and completely stomps on it, rips it apart, and breaks the toy. You had so many chances, and you blew it. Unfortunately, the time has come to get to the Fazbear Fright side of the story and the ending. What do you think happens to him? I'm curious. If you haven't read the story, think about it now. What do you think is going to happen to Joel if it's a Fazbear Fright story? About everything I've said, Joel's eyes shot open. He blinked and looked around. He'd been dreaming about the stupid little toy from the Faz Crunch box. But why had he awakened? Joel rubbed his eyes and turned to check his bedside clock. It read 2 a.m. exactly. That was weird. He couldn't remember the last time he had woken up, and the clock was right on the hour. It was. Joel sat up. Okay, that was really weird. He hadn't planned on sitting up. He had planned on closing his eyes and going back to sleep. He didn't have to pee. He wasn't thirsty. He was still tired. Why would he sit up? Joel threw back the covers and stood up. What the hell? He didn't want to stand up. Why was he standing up? Joel stood, ramrod straight, and looked around the room as if his neck was on hydraulics. His head movement seemed stiff and jerky. What was wrong with him? His neck felt bizarre. Come to think of it, his whole body felt off. It felt locked up and unyielding. It wasn't just his skin. His joints didn't feel right either. They felt like they did when he worked out too hard without warming up. He felt like his body wasn't his anymore. He took another step, and another, and another. So he wakes up randomly, and he can't control his body. So he's moving without his own control. Something is controlling him like a puppet. This puppet that's controlling him makes him get dressed, makes him go outside, and starts walking down the street. While he's walking, he could feel and hear his joints cracking as he moved and walked, like his body wasn't doing it itself. Something was making his body walk, and his joints and bones were cracking. Joel thought about calling out to his parents. Maybe they could snap him out of whatever was going on with him, but he couldn't make a sound. So he's lost all control of his whole body now. He can't talk, he can't move himself. The only thing he can control is his senses. So he can hear still, he can feel, he can see. Whoever's controlling him, where are they taking Joel? He's got dressed, he's gone downstairs, and he's outside at this point. Where do you think he's going to go? He starts to feel really weird at this point. And he starts to feel like his body is starting to turn hard. And he says it doesn't feel like it's turning into rock. It's turning into plastic. During whatever length of time he had been out here, though, he had noticed his body was starting to feel strained, as if it was reaching some sort of breaking point. He was starting to hear cracks with the creaks in his movement. Were his bones fracturing? He wasn't in horrible pain or anything. He just felt wrong. He no longer felt like him, like a human. He was feeling more and more like a thing. The panic rose as it became clear where his body was taking him. Joel was heading back to where Caleb's lifeless body lay in a ditch. So yeah, something's controlling him. He's starting to feel like plastic, and the whatever it is, it's taking him to where the accident was. Now he's starting to realize what's going on a little bit. So he's not sweating anymore. He's not sweating. He can't cry. He can't feel his pulse anymore. So his body is starting to shut down, but he's still, he's still wide awake going through all of this, which is really, really, really horrible. I did say earlier, I was like, oh, maybe Joel does deserve this. But this part of what happens to him, man, I would not wish that on Joel at all. It's really bad. And it goes into some pretty gruesome details about what happens. Joel eventually gets controlled, makes his way to where the accident is. Joel couldn't turn, and he couldn't go anywhere. He wasn't being compelled to go. He was not much different than the toy figurine at this point, subject to the whims of whoever or whatever wanted to position him. It was like this puppet is made him control the toy, Joel, to go to the accident, and like even positioning him. This was the spot. Joel stopped moving. For several long seconds, Joel was still. He could tell he was just off the pavement, right where he had hit Caleb. He could even see the black snake-like track of his skid marks on the grey street. Joel wondered if this was it. Would he be released now that he had been brought to this point? Had the whole purpose of this body snatching been to get where he had refused to go? Joel didn't get much of a chance to ponder this question before the answer revealed itself. No, this was not it. His ordeal was not over. In fact, it was about to get much, much worse. Joel felt an ache begin in his mouth, at the roots of his teeth. It was a dull pain, but it was noticeable. What did it mean? What was happening in his mouth? Joel was now so terrified that he felt a scream climb up his throat and into his mouth, but it didn't come out. It couldn't. Joel wasn't able to control his vocal cords. Joel did, however, open his mouth for the first time since he left his house. Apparently, it wasn't welded shut because he could sense his lips hinging apart. He even heard it opening. The sensation was barely noticeable because of how much the pain in his teeth commanded his attention, but he knew it meant his mouth was open. Suddenly, the pain in his teeth stopped, and he felt something different. He heard something different too. The sound he heard was a quiet clicking, a faint intermittent tapping, like the sound of pebbles dribbling to the ground. It felt like pebbles falling too in his mouth. Small hard bits were dropping onto his tongue and tumbling past his lips. His teeth. When he's in his position, he can't move or anything. His mouth feels weird. His mouth starts opening like that, probably even bigger than that. His teeth start falling out. What do you think's happening? What do you think's happening? This was a nasty thing because he can't do anything. One of his teeth fell into his throat, and he could feel the tooth like stuck in there, and he can't do anything. He can't get it out. He can't cough or anything. It's just jammed in there. Oh, that is a horrible thought to think of. I would hate that. His sight, his hearing, and his ability to feel pain were the only things Joel had left. He was pathetically grateful for these small gifts until his eyes showed him what was happening next. A tuft of black hair fluttered out in front of Joel's vision. It got caught on a current in the night's breeze and it wafted away. Another tuft followed the first, then the third, then the fourth. Then chunks of hair started dropping in front of his eyes. So now, his hair is starting to fall out as well. Joel didn't want to see anymore. He couldn't take watching another piece of who he thought he was falling away. Perhaps because he literally couldn't withstand the trauma of seeing anything else, his wish was granted. Joel's eyes dropped out of his head. He actually felt them disconnect and roll down his cheeks. As soon as his eyes left his body, he went blind. As horrifying as this was, at least Joel didn't have to watch his eyeballs drop to the gravel beneath his feet. He did hear it though. His ears ever so helpfully delivered to him the sickening splat of his eyes reaching the ground. So his teeth fell out like this. Teeth, hair, eyeballs popped onto the floor. Even before that, his joints felt like plastic. Guys, I think he's turning into a Kids at Play. His ears were also still doing their duty when Joel's fingers fell away from his hands. He heard his fingers clatter onto the ground like sticks hitting rocks. Before he could even begin to process this inconceivable mutilation, his hands disconnected from his arms. It felt like wires wrapped around the tendons and tore his hands from his wrists. He could feel something pushing its way out through his empty eye sockets. It felt like some pulsing form was being pumped through the openings, something like a balloon or a ball being inflated. He could feel the pressure around the space where his eyes used to be. The pressure built and built until he could sense whatever had been inflated was protruding out over his cheekbones. So now something inside of his eyes are bulging out, like maybe big black eyes, like that. He felt his skin beginning to snap apart and slip from his body. The sensation was similar to what he had felt when sunburned skin started to peel, but it was much stronger than that, because it wasn't just the top layer of his skin that was unraveling from him, it was every layer. His skin was flaying away from his muscles and his tendons. As his skin parted from what was beneath it, he felt the breeze sting his exposed tissues. It felt like some unseen hand was pulling his skin from his body, tearing wet sections from him as if he was a fish being filleted. He could hear the soggy strips slap the ground. He knew long ribbons of his skin were piling up beneath him because every sinew of his body felt exposed. Joel knew nothing. Finally, after being subjected to the most heinous misery that any human could have been expected to survive, his consciousness succumbed to whatever force was orchestrating his transformation. The person that was Joel ceased to exist. I've got to say, that is one of the most detailed, brutal endings to one of the characters in the Fazbear Frights stories. That was horrifying. You can imagine him just being stood there, not being able to move, and still having the sensations and feelings and vision, like seeing and hearing things of his body getting turned into a Kids at Play figurine. It's not over yet though, guys. It's not over yet. That isn't the ending. I mean, what's happened to Caleb? Do we know if he's missing? Did he actually die? A neighbour had seen a weird small man walking across the street. Okay? So we know that's Joel, but they don't know. But the neighbour saw Joel, getting controlled, walking to the accident. And the neighbour calls the policeman. So he goes to have a look around and he finds something. The chief turned in a slow circle, scanning the areas illuminated by the glow of his flashlight. He didn't see anything at first, but then he did. He froze, concentrating on the strange shape hunched in the shadows just beyond the range of his flashlight. He stepped forward so his light would land directly on the form. Montgomery gulped and took a step back. He immediately felt silly. His response had been ridiculous. What he was looking at was nothing to be upset about. The chief's flashlight beam lit up at a large, misshapen plastic boy positioned right at the edge of the road. The plastic figure had a mostly featureless face, no nose, no cheeks, no chin. All the face had was two bulging black eyes and an open, darkness-filled mouth. Montgomery had seen a few figures like this around town. It was part of some Freddy Fazbear public safety initiative to deter reckless drivers in areas where kids were running around. Most of the figures he had seen were much smaller than this one, and this one was oddly contorted, as if some of the plastic had been deformed in the moulding process. For some reason, the shape disturbed the chief. He was spooked, but he couldn't possibly have explained why if anybody had asked him. These Kids That Play figurines were made and designed by Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. And like I said at the start of the video, they were designed to protect kids from getting run over and hit by cars. The chief says that this one's a little bit weird. This one doesn't look normal. It's a bit deformed and contorted. That's obviously because that's Joel. He's not going to know that. He's not going to know that, but yeah, that is Joel. And Joel has been turned into a Kids That Play figurine. He shook his head. He was just overtired. That was all. Too much stress. The chief started to move on and search beyond the bizarre figure. But then, his light landed on something piled up on the ground. He tilted his flashlight downward and frowned in confusion. What was that? Mulch? What was Mulch doing out on the road? Leaning closer, he shined his light over what looked like glistening, pinkish-brown ribbons tangled together. Not ribbon, obviously. The mass of material appeared to be something organic, and for some reason, it gave him the heebie-jeebies. Below the Kids That Play figurine, guys, was Joel's remains. Joel's remains were on the floor next to it, because as I've read earlier, Joel turned into the figurine and all of his body parts and his skin got turned into mulch at the base of the plastic figurine's legs and feet. At the start of the video, I mentioned the one that Joel hit had the same mulch at his feet as well. This brown matter at the base of the Kids That Play figurine's feet when Joel hit it with the car. Okay? To me, if it's got the same mulch, I think the Kids That Play figurine that Joel hit at the start of the story was another victim, in my opinion. It's the same mulch at the base on the floor. So I thought like, oh my God, okay, I remember Joel hitting that one at the start of the story. So was that a different victim of somebody who was speeding across the street and hit one of them? From the left of the trees he was focused on, Montgomery heard a whimper. He froze and listened. Was that really a whimper? Or the cry of some injured animal? He tilted his head and concentrated, and there it was again. That wasn't an animal. It sounded like a child. The chief immediately shifted his light towards the ditch at the side of the road. That was where the sound was coming from. He hurried over to the edge of the road and aimed his light into the ditch. He couldn't see anything. "Hello?" he called out. "Caleb?" The whimper turned into a cry. Montgomery turned and ran towards his SUV. Reaching for his mic, he keyed it on. "Rankin, get the EMTs out here to Glenwood Fields entrance. I think I found the kid." He didn't wait for a response. He spun around and ran past the weird Kids That Play figure. When he got to the edge of the ditch, he slid down its side. "I'm coming, Caleb. Hang on." The weak cry that answered made his heart leap with hope. He scrabbled towards the sound, and when he saw the small boy wedged behind a pile of rock, he dropped to his knees. "I'm here, Caleb. It's okay. You're going to be okay." As Chief Montgomery took off his jacket and laid over the boy's narrow shoulders, he couldn't help but grin in triumph. he found the kid. Everything was going to be all right. And that's the end of Kids at Play. So Caleb was found and he was alive. Caleb was alive all along, guys. And if Joel... Oh, God, I spilt my tea. Sugar. If Joel just went back to the accident, Caleb would have been fine. Okay, Caleb did get hit by the car, but he didn't die. Okay, it doesn't even say if he was injured or not. The story at the end doesn't say if Caleb's injured, but I'm sure he would be if he got hit by a car going 80 miles per hour. But he did survive it, and he was in the ditch, and he was there all day and night. So he must have been injured somehow, like, you know, if he was just stuck in the ditch and he couldn't move or anything. But yeah, Caleb survived the accident. Joel didn't. But yeah, if Joel just went back, he had so many warnings from the Kids at Play figurines. And this is what I think, guys. This is what I think. I think that most of the Kids at Play figurines at that neighborhood are previous victims. And the Kids at Play figurines scattered across the neighborhood were trying to tell Joel and warn Joel to go and see the kid. Go to the accident and redeem yourself. Don't chicken out of it. You need to go and do it, because if you don't go to the accident and find Caleb and, you know, just admit what you've done, you're going to have the same fate as we all have. You're going to turn into a Kids at Play figurine. So I think some of them that were, you know, were looking at him. Obviously, they can't do anything because they're just figurines. I really do think that they were trying to warn Joel. And Joel didn't listen. And unfortunately, his fate was to turn into a Kids at Play figurine at the side of the road. Again, I couldn't really think of any connections with any of the other stories or books or games, sorry. Somebody getting turned into something else. I mean, that's happened a lot in the Fazbear Frights stories of some of the previous stories of the main characters getting turned into something. But yeah, other than that, I couldn't really think of anything. The only thing the only thing that could be interesting is what I've said earlier, is that the previous Kids at Play figurines that Joel saw and hit were previous victims who had the same fate as what Joel did at the end. But that was Kids at Play, everybody. Let me know your thoughts about the story. Like I said, I did think it was a bit mid, the whole story, but the ending, I think, made up for it. For a horror story, you know, it went into a lot of detail about what happened to Joel, and I did feel bad for him, you know. The fact that he could feel everything that was going on. The only thing that I'm glad for Joel is that he didn't feel the pain. He said that he felt it a little bit, but luckily for him, like, most of the pain he didn't feel. Can you imagine feeling the pain of, like, your skin getting ripped off and stuff? That would be horrible. But luckily for him, the Fazbear Fright universe, which I think I've done it before, where some of the victims don't feel pain when they get turned into something. So that's lucky for Joel, because that would have been horrible. Let me know your thoughts, guys, please, about the whole story. What did you think? And do you feel bad for Joel? The next story is Find Player 2. And we'll be reading that very soon. Okay? And then obviously we've got the finale of the Sitchwraith story 2 to read and talk about. So yeah. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Leave a like if you enjoyed. Let me know your thoughts. Sorry that it took so long. It's pretty difficult for me at the moment with everything going on, and to try and read a book and make a video about it, especially when you've lost the motivation to do it. You know, I am trying, so I appreciate the support. Take care, lots of love, thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.